And so it was very humbling for me to put myself in a position to confess to somebody that I feel like I just want somebody to knock my boots. I just feel like I just need a little loving, you know, or to call somebody who's like, yeah, I'm calling because. Well, hello, ladies, and welcome to Open Conversation regarding sex, soul ties, and strongholds. But I really wanted to make sure that I created just an opportunity for anybody who wanted to talk or share as it related to the video that I posted in the community. So, Hannah, in that video, she asked a question, and it was good and it was real, right? And she talked about how, she was raised in a church. She understands that sex before marriage, fornication is a sin. She encourages other ladies to walk upright before the Lord, abstain from sex and all of that. And she pretty much said, but here I am, I'm falling with the sons in the church, I think is how she put it. And that's a real thing, right? And so for many of you, you may not have really heard like my full testimony. So I wanted to, again, like I said, create this opportunity for anybody who wanted to jump on and talk about, that first clip, because that's one of three. And next week I'll, put out number two. But I wanted to just really share a little bit of my testimony as it relates to exactly what Hannah said. Because a lot of times the enemy will have us think like we are the only ones, right? Like I remember when I was single, I struggled for a while, a good while, because I felt like a unicorn in the church because you know how like you go to the singles meetings, right? Or you have like a singles conferences. And I don't know, like, what some of you ladies' experiences were, but like we would have people who would come and they would be married and, married couples, ministering to the singles. But the thing was, I always saw the finished product, right? I see this wonderful couple. They talked about, how they, got together, how God brought them together. They gave the scriptures and all of that will be good. But what I would always trip over was I never heard anybody talk about what I was going through at that moment, right? And what was I going through at that moment? Masturbating, um struggling with sexual desires, so that was the masturbating. Before I married my husband, I was going to marry this other guy in the church. And during our courtship we got all close and connected, honey, way too prematurely. And so I backslid, sleeping with him on a regular basis in the church. Okay. And so I struggle with that, right? And so, and I believe Hannah even made the statement that, she loves God, I love the Lord. I would be so disappointed in myself when I would fall, right? And I would just beat myself up and like, God, just help me. And, sometimes you hear people saying, God, just take the desire from me. But the thing is, the desire, it belongs to the Lord. I shouldn't say it belongs to the Lord, but it's God given. That desire for sex and sexual stimulation, sexuality, it has its place, right? Now for me, like a lot of women, I had an appetite for sex, right? I got saved. I think I was 23 when I gave my life to the Lord. So but before then, I remember playing hide and go seek with my brother. I think I might have been 10, 9, 10. And to make a long story short, I remember hiding in my mother's closet. And while I was waiting to be found by my brother, I found a magazine, right? And it was like a Playboy. It was a booty. I call them booty magazines, right? And so that opened the door to porn. I was 9 or 10 years old, right? So I'm talking about the perversion. And so, then young person, molested, getting older, having male relationships, so having sex. And so I say all of that to say that my body had an appetite for sex. And so you come into the kingdom, right? With these experiences, you're hearing the word and you all that kind of stuff. But I still did not know how to walk up right before the Lord in purity. And I think it's First Thessalonians that talks about that everyone should know how to possess their bodies in sanctification and in honor. And I didn't know how. I knew how to fornicate. I knew how to go with my sexual urges. I knew how to masturbate. That's what I knew. And so, but once I set out to, like, I was like, listen, God, I really need you to help me. And I even remember when I was in fornication with the guy that I was going to marry, I remember telling the Lord, right? I said, God, you got to help me. I said, because I know it's wrong, but I like it. It feels good. Help me to see it the way that you see it. And me seeing it the way that God saw it was not overnight, right? But the Bible says that God is able to keep us from falling. And so I understood that there were some things that I needed to do, right? God was going to do his part. With every temptation, God makes a way of escape. But I had to take the way of escape. But there were some things that I knew that I needed to do if I was going to stay up on my feet and keep my panties up. And so I went from being a unicorn, feeling like a unicorn in the church because I really didn't know, people were struggling with the stuff that I was struggling with, right? Because I'm seeing all these people who seem like they have it all together, and their walk with God is just so perfect and blessed, and all this kind of stuff. So I went from feeling like a unicorn because I'm struggling. Then I went to the opposite end of the spectrum, being a unicorn in the singles meetings, because the things that I knew that it was going to take for me, right? They said that I was doing the most. It didn't take all that, you just doing too much. And I would tell them, I'm like, listen, I don't know what it takes for you. I know what it takes for me. And let me just give you a few examples of some of the things that they would drag me over. So I remember the singles, we had gone to the movies. I can't even remember what we saw, but a couple of us, we all had gone out, went to the movies, and we had gone out to dinner afterwards. But during the movie, and it wasn't like no, highly sexual movie, but some of those scenes come up, honey, okay? And so you could tell there's this, they're looking in each other's eyes, right? There's about to be this embrace. And honey, it looked like they was about to lock lips. And so I immediately, covered my eyes, and I told whoever was sitting next to me, let me know when it was over. And so I did that a couple of times, throughout the movie. So when we all went to dinner, honey, they drugged me. You just Cynthia, you just doing too much. It don't take all that. It ain't nothing but some kissing. And listen, for them, it was nothing but kissing. For me, it was an open door, because you have to remember, I was already struggling with masturbation. I was trying to keep my hands off myself, right? And so once I, really asked God to really help me and show me, there were some things that I had to implement for me in order to walk up right before the Lord and walk in purity, right? And so, like, there were certain movies that I stopped watching, like Lifetime, honey, all that love stories. Nope, stop watching it. Any books that I would read, and as you can tell, I like reading. I made sure that I didn't read like any romance novels, and even though I didn't really read a lot of those, I had a few. And so music, making sure that none of the music was like love songs, none of that, right? And then I also made myself accountable to somebody. Now, here's the thing with me. I'm a very private person, right? And so it was very humbling for me to put myself in a position to confess to somebody that I feel like I just want somebody to knock my boots. I just feel like I just need a little loving, or to call somebody who's like, yeah, I'm calling.